India rejects to join RCEP. But what is this RCEP and why do we need it? Hello everyone,
I'm Rahul Devdhar.
I am Prasanna Naidu and you are listening to the Right Views podcast. So, this regional comprehensive economic partnership, what is this partnership about? And apart from the full form, I don't know much about this RCEP. So, Rahul sir, can you just put some light on it?
Hi, you're right. This is RCEP is actually a free trade agreement, and it encompasses the ASEAN region, which is Southeast Asia, the region which encompasses Southeast Asian countries, along with North Asian countries, including China and Japan. So this is a economic cooperation agreement between ASEAN, which itself is a economic cooperation between Southeast Asian nations like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and with North Asia, including China and Japan. That's the genesis of RCEP,
Okay.
broadly speaking. Hmm.
Yeah, so these agreements or partnership which we know or heard of like ASEAN, RCEP or any other, there are many other such partnerships. So these are usually for trade, right? And for Southeast Asia, we already have ASEAN. So why this new RCEP is needed, and what's the difference?
Actually, this is a very good question, and you have to understand. I mean, let's go back to I mean, how far back we will have to go is a question, but let's go back to regional cooperation agreements. And the first and very dominant regional comprehensive economic trade agreement was sort of the European agreement, where all the European countries came together and they formed a unified market. And that market later became the EU, which is not just, I mean, short of political integration, it is a comprehensive unification of a geographical zone where free trade is practiced, even though every country is retaining its own political identity and its own politics separate from others. Now that integration, the genesis of that was sort of the more economic interdependence we create, the better it is for the your own growth as well as it is good for stability. Now the same template of sorts was created for ASEAN. So ASEAN is a regional trade agreement between Southeast Asian countries, which is Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, these countries, who were in some sort of similar situation in 1960s, 70s, and they wanted to grow together while retaining their political independence and coming together as a market so that they have a reasonable say in terms of demand, that is the consumers within this area, as well as trade amongst themselves and trade as a block. So they came together. Now here it takes a
if
little
if
different.
if can so it's like forming a shorter group and telling each other that let's become Atmanirbhar, something like that.
Yes, no, it is because as a group, there, see, if Singapore alone negotiates or Malaysia alone negotiates with all the trade partners, it becomes very difficult to get the bargaining power right. So trade is all about bargaining power. So if you want
Hmm.
access to American market, America is a 350 million people market. Okay, the population of America is 350 million. It's a fairly rich country. So if you want to supply goods to America and you have only 2 million people. So America, whatever it supplies to you is not going to be in that proportion. So your bargaining power in that deal is quite low.
Yeah, and maybe the trade will be more influenced by America.
Yes, it will be it definitely will be dominated by America in that case. But if you come together as a group where America coming to Singapore will help America get access to all the Southeast Asian countries, then your bargaining power against America is improved a bit, not to a large extent, but to whatever size your group is. So it's like a adjustment for bargaining power. Now,
Hmm.
Southeast Asian country, the best agreements are amongst people who are similar in their, uh, you know, uh, value systems,
Hmm.
and they are economically similarly situated. So you can't have a agreement where one is rich and one is poor. That agreement doesn't really work. Okay,
Right, right, right.
you have two, three middle income countries coming together, then they have a good chance of coming together in a proper way. Now, Asia has been dominated after World War II by Japan, and Japanese exports to US actually never really involved Southeast Asia. So Southeast Asia usually formed the trading part of the Japanese sales to America as well as to other part of the world. So if you, I don't, you're too young for this, but back in 1970s and 80s, if you want to buy a VCR or a tape recorder of that sort, a good high quality audio equipment, television, then you will get those Japanese products like Panasonic or National was a brand for Panasonic. They will be coming through Singapore or Malaysia, and they would be coming to India. So
Hmm.
those kinds
Hmm.
of things, or they would be going to Dubai, and from Dubai they would be coming to India. That kind of thing happened. So it was more of a trading hub at that time. But ASEAN countries came together. They wanted to be uh, a group to develop their own economic potential, and they came together as ASEAN. And ASEAN was a sort of another trading power when you counter with Japan. Then China came into being, and China became very, very big in since 2001 when China joined the WTO. China became a big trading partner of ASEAN. Now, here is what it becomes a little controversial. So, what happened was America always had a good relation with ASEAN because America sort of guarantees the geopolitical stability in the region, and America has always had good relationship with Japan.
Hmm.
So, with the advent of China, America also had a good relationship with China. So there was a good, you know, mix of all the things for trade. So there was free trade between China, Japan, ASEAN with America. So that was the thing. And America wanted to sort of crystallize this in form of various trade agreements. So they are binary trade agreements, bilateral trade agreements rather, between ASEAN and US, ASEAN, I mean US and China, US and Japan, like that.
Hmm.
And then there was a big push by Obama towards East. So Obama started a policy called Look East, and that policy was sort of trying to put together a trade group within Asia. And by the time Obama uh, had received some trade war kind of input from his own administration, so Obama decided to create something called as TPP or
Hmm.
similar. It was not called TPP when it was discussion was started, but there was a discussion to start a trade agreement of all the countries bordering the Pacific. Now,
Hmm.
this included Taiwan, Japan, except China, it included everyone.
Hmm.
In fact, there were discussion where India should also join this group. So, which is India doesn't have any border with Pacific, but still it was considered, and all these sorts of things were going on.
Hmm.
Then, in a dramatic twist, Obama abandoned his and that actually that also emboldened ASEAN. Okay, to stand up to China because Chinese manufacturing was eating away the manufacturing industrial economy of ASEAN as well. Uh, it was doing so in Japan and Korea also, but it was eating up the manufacturing economy of ASEAN. It was definitely eating up manufacturing economy of India. Since 2001, if you see, India has not been producing any small and medium segment manufacturing powerhouse. Okay,
Hmm.
so in late 80s or in 80s, you had Sundaram Fastener, Sundaram, that TVS Group, all these companies. Kirloskar became big. All these companies became, or they started growing in size. But since 2001, if you have seen, since China joined the WTO, we haven't had these kinds of groups which manufacture products globally to come out, from India, because China has been draining this manufacturing economy. Now, ASEAN was very happy to be a part of TPP because they will now be able to do things directly with America,
Hmm.
and then if they can use that as a lever to negotiate with China, so Chinese products can come into ASEAN, they will be
Hmm.
assembled, processed, whatever further manufacturing can take over in ASEAN, and then they can be sent into the TPP markets. That was the whole point. So, but in that process, what happened was Obama abandoned ASEAN geopolitically when this China started building these islands in the South China Sea.
Hmm.
So he left ASEAN to fend for themselves. Now, on one side, ASEAN was standing up to China because of this TPP, you know, uh, sort of a pos- possibility of a TPP-led economic boom, and on other side, it was threatened by China geopolitically. So ASEAN got scared. ASEAN decided this is not worth it. It's because reality is China is physically closer to ASEAN. So anything happens, China is dangerous in terms of physical proximity. So they decided to pacify China through a creation of a economic network called the RCEP.
Okay.
And in this RCEP, if you notice that there are no, ASEAN is the initiator of RCEP. So
Right.
ASEAN wanted to sort of have a relation with China, Japan, Australia, South Korea, all other people, other participants really have no threat from China because A, they supply to China. Japan is in technological space where China is not. So Japan produces high-end displays like the one you are using on phones and on laptops and TVs, which China cannot produce. Korea is producing memory and high-end, you know, microprocessors. Taiwan is again producing high-end goods, which uh, China is not competing with. China is essentially competing with ASEAN. China is not competing with these guys. So this agreement was helpful for ASEAN to pacify China, in my view. That is actually not my view. That was explained to me in one of the conferences, and I agree with it. In one of the participants told me this, that this is the real reason for RCEP, and it sort of tallies with most of the, because there is no other logic, because ASEAN amongst themselves have a economic agreement. Japan already has a trade with ASEAN. South Korea has trade with ASEAN. Australia is a very big supplier to ASEAN, and it's a big, there is a good trade relation between Australia, New Zealand, all these players with ASEAN. Only thing, China is also a very good participant to ASEAN. So, what is the competition? I mean, what is the reason for this agreement? So there is fundamentally no reason for this agreement. This is basically, so I tried to see what is this reason. So at least there is no good reason except to mollify China when they started joining TPP, and then Trump also pulled out from TPP. That created even further problem. So this is the reason for RCEP basically.
Whatever tariffs, lowering of tariffs, duties, and all, they are planning to do under RCEP, they would have done it in ASEAN itself, right? Because China was part of it already.
China was not part of ASEAN, but China had a trade relationship with ASEAN.
Okay, okay.
So ASEAN basically covers only Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, these countries, Vietnam. These are ASEAN countries.
And ASEAN was formed by? I mean, who initiated it?
ASEAN was, it's a group, it's a they came together essentially. This happened long time ago, I think in 1980s or so, where Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, all these countries came together. They they had a, because they have maritime trade, because they are all island very close to each other. So they have to resolve these issues, like border crossings, all these. So they had this group, and that they converted into a formal group. Now ASEAN is one of the most glacially moving groups in all trade. So they will never come out with a statement which is pro or anti anyone. They will always say, we are considering, China has done some activity, we are considering that. They will never denounce or come out with any, because there are so many players in that it's, everyone has their own interest, pro and against, on every issue.
Right, right, right.
So RCEP per se, from India's point of view, if you see, India already has relationship with ASEAN.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So India already has a relationship with Japan.
Hmm.
India and Korea, we have a trade. We have trade with Taiwan also. We have trade with Australia and New Zealand also.
Hmm.
So we are all part of WTO. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
So there is no further reason to add layers and layers of trade agreements, particularly because in any case, they are not buying anything from us. See,
Yeah.
for what's in it
And
for me,
as far as China is concerned, we already have a lot of trade with China.
we also have trade with China. So it's not going to, no, this is, I'm saying, you have to understand every person's what's in it for me. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
WIIFM. This is the main thing everyone has to look out for. So what's in it for me? China wants to sell its goods to ASEAN and all this people, countries in RCEP. They are of course there. They are selling everything there, but they have this RCEP also is one way. Okay. Japan also wants to sell. They are competitive globally. RCEP or no RCEP, you are going to buy. If you're going to buy Toyota, you're going to buy Toyota. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's RCEP doesn't make any difference for you. The prices are a little different, plus minus. Okay. So these kinds of things, they have competitive advantage to bring to the table. Now, what competitive advantage is India going to bring to table? IT. They are not major consumers of IT. They consume American technology. I mean, whatever you sell to America and Europe is what goes to them.
Okay,
So,
let's get into that later. First, let's cover this. What is this free trade agreement all about? Like in general, how these free trade agreements work. As I said, thing like reducing trade duties and tariffs. This is regarding import, export, and stuff. So apart from that, what other things are there in these trade agreements, and how it affects the markets of that country and the economy of that country?
see, what happens is, like, if you take any trade agreement, every country has its own system of sort of tagging goods and tagging services and the way it is structured.
Hmm.
And let's say like in India, we have certain chemicals which are acceptable, whatever is the kind of Indian products which we use. There are certain standards that we follow. Now, let's say, in cars, we know we are following the Bharat Stage 4, Bharat Stage 6, Bharat Stage 7, these kinds of standards. Now, when you have a trade agreement, the trade agreement helps you, because when you say ki my vehicle is compliant with Bharat Stage 4
Hmm.
or Stage 6, and
Hmm.
you send it to Australia, Australia says we don't recognize, we have only Australian Stage 4 standards, or whatever their stage is. So you have to recertify all this, you know then, so this is, I'm just giving you one example of one product, but you can imagine for every product that you send to Australia. So milk, if you send milk, Australia is an exporter of milk, but you can imagine you are sending something to, let's say you're sending camel milk to Australia or goat milk to Australia.
Hmm.
So they will have their own standard, we will have our own standard, and then they'll say ki, first you have to do is that any milk supplier from India will have to certify the milk, or and then go through the Australian certification and then reach the approval, stamp of approval, and then that stamp has to be done with every shipment. In a trade agreement, such kind of differences are resolved. So whatever is India's Bharat stage 6 is compliant with Australia's stage 4, whatever they
Okay,
find
okay.
out. That kind of efficiency comes in. So when you say ki, this is automatically certified as Australia stage 7, go. And then the whole paperwork and all this
Process becomes faster.
yes, becomes faster. So this is in addition to whatever duty advantage you get. So initially you might be getting, let's say, your all products imported into Australia are taxed at, or the levy is 10%. So because you have free trade agreement, you will have 5%. So that is an advantage. So that is clear cut advantage. But these kinds of process advantages are also there. So secondly, they might set up a certifying agency at your port. So let's say you are sending lots of goods from multiple countries. So because you have already vetted, you have already x-rayed them, they are not explosive, they are only toys or something. So then the Australian whatever embassy or whatever, they will set up an office which will certify it here, so that processing becomes faster. So this free trade agreements help you in easy and faster processing. They will also come and say, if you are like Australian banks may give you credit because you are selling to Australia, because you need Australian dollars. So they will give you loan. So all these facilities become open. So that is the advantage of FTA. And mostly, if you have an access to US markets, then you have almost all the doors are open for you, because US is big market. So that is the big advantage. Europe is the second biggest market, and Asia, despite being the largest population, is the smallest market.
Yeah, exactly. That came to my mind. So how is that so? Because even also in Asia, China and specifically India has the population is a lot more than I think US. So
But we don't have money, na? So हम लोग poor हैं. So the thing is, the kind of products. Now, I'll tell you the fantastic thing. If you buy a shirt, trouser, and shoes and everything in US, it will be cheaper than in India. I found this. I personally, in fact, if you go to US, you should not even buy a suitcase. You should go there. There are discount stores. I'm not saying you buy the high end stuff. Okay, there is. You want to buy a suit. Of course, there are suits which are available for $10,000. But I'm saying, a person who wants to spend $100 and get a basic shirt, trouser, can be within $100. He will be able to completely have 2 sets of dress with him. In India, in that 5,000, for that the nature of the quality of this goods, this dress, you will not get for 5,000 rupees in India.
Yeah, and if that same suit comes here in India, then it would be a way like costly for us.
Yes. No, suit, I'm saying the suit will be X amount, but I'm saying shirt. Let's say you go and get a good quality shirt, okay, and meaning you get a good shirt, okay. I'm not saying the best quality shirt or very high quality, but when you see the shirt and you try to see what shirt is available at similar price point. Let's say you just convert the money in Indian rupees. You go and say $100 US dollars, and it is 7,200 or 7,500 rupees in India. So in 7,500, what will you get? And let's assume you have to buy 2 shirts, 2 trousers, 1 shoes, and 2 pairs of socks. At least that's the basic you will wear. Okay, and 1 or 2 sets of undergarments. So in that $100, if you are able to buy that in India, you will not be able to buy it in 7,500 rupees. That's what I'm saying. The same stuff.
Got it.
So that is because of sales tax and all that. But there is a lot of cheap. The same, in discount stores, you get a lot of discount. So a person in America can get these kinds of things cheaper, but they cannot get food cheaper. Like in India, food will be, if you get 100 rupees, you can have a good meal. Okay, full whole day you can survive on 100 rupees eating.
Hmm.
If that's your budget for eating, you can definitely survive, without any problem. You can
Yeah.
have breakfast, lunch, dinner. In US, you can't. That's the
Hmm.
difference. But the point is that this whole trade has made these goods cheaper in US. Now I don't understand why a Chinese shirt is cheaper in US and is costly in Singapore. Singapore is closer to China, right? So
Right.
that same shirt, which is manufactured, same cloth,
Hmm.
same everything,
Hmm.
same brand also. If that shirt is available for $100 in US, it should be available for $10 less in Singapore, but it is not, doesn't work that way. So that is what the trade gives you. The trade, once you have the trade agreement and you have negotiated it properly, you get some cost advantages.
Okay. Okay. So, how important is RCP to India, and why did it decide to not join it? Do you know the reasons for it?
So actually, the reasons they have not stated publicly, but there is, like I was mentioning, for any trade agreement to make sense, we have to have a clear understanding of what's in it for me.
I think
Okay.
Jaishankar had publicly declared.
No, but that is not the real reason. He cannot declare the real reason.
What? Why?
Because, the thing is, there is no advantage for India. Okay. India is a taker from that.
Hmm.
Okay. Suppose, let's say you want to join an agreement, that tomorrow all your manufacturers of your mobile phone, TV, your clothes are going to come together. Okay, you are not manufacturing any of these. Okay,
Hmm.
or you are
Hmm.
not manufacturing any of the things that they are buying.
Hmm.
Okay, so you join that agreement. What is that agreement going to do? They are going to come together and sell it to you. There is nothing else going to happen.
Hmm.
Okay, so what's in it for us? That is the question that we have to answer. Now, India is not an exporter of any, high-end technology which, we can compete with China, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia. What are we competing? Here we can compete on pharma. We can compete on, textiles, which we are now losing to Bangladesh. But we can compete on textiles. We can compete on, women's garments. That's also part of textile, but those kinds of things. What else? So that is the problem. So we are only going to be there as a buyer of all these products. So if we are going to buy, we don't want them to come together and be part of that. We will
Yeah.
negotiate with each one of them separately. So we can say ki ban all Chinese products, allow all Korean products. That we can do. In RCEP, that freedom goes away.
Plus, if we are only on the buying side, it will be, I think, a costlier deal for us. Like it what?
Costlier deal for us. So what exactly are we bringing, trying to sell to these guys? That's the question we have to answer. So if we are selling something to these guys, not Indian land or Indian factories, no, that's not what we want to sell. We want to sell products from
Hmm.
India. So which are these products? So we want to know.
Okay.
And then what kind of protection will our products get? So what is happening is that China, there is a very big case in US where there is a small, this is a Indian manufacturer only. So he had a television channel, okay, on which he used to create some products and sell it through television channel, direct television. That channel only has advertising only.
Hmm.
So US has these some channels. So like some these things come, right. Cutting cucumbers in proper star, like some
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of products he used to manufacture. So he said that he it was a billion, 10 billion,
Naptol in India, I think
something like that.
Naptol.
Yeah. So something like that he was manufacturing, and it was like worth billions of dollars. Okay.
Hmm. So it's
Now,
like one guy comes in front of the screen and he starts kind of screaming and आपने देखा है ये जो काटने वाला
something. Yeah,
मशीन है.
exactly, exactly. Yes,
So,
yes. So exactly, that's those kinds of products which are, like, which are innovative products, but
very cheap
they are not that.
quality.
No, they were not cheap quality. They were trying to build like these kinds of products. Some of them
Hmm.
would take off. Okay,
Okay.
some, like, things like pencil, caps for pencil. So you will have a pencil, on top of it you will have some, like, Batman ka cap.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
something like that. Okay, so some very simple things, very cheap, like $1, $2, something like that. But they
Hmm.
had,
Hmm.
the problem happened is the minute, because that all has to go from US. Okay, so he
Hmm.
makes in US, he buys whatever from wherever and sends from his own office in US. Is, I think, based in Florida. So the minute he would advertise that product, there would be Chinese products of the same kind, even the same design, same stickers, everything same, which are available on Amazon, Alibaba, Alipay, things like that. Okay. So he said, "Ki before I could advertise only, they had these products." So this is, what he was trying to say. Ki this is how China has eaten up his competition. So he's saying, Ki I cannot make money. And, US had some um mechanism where the US Postal Service sends everything that is from China at $1 or $2 or some discounted price, but sends everything that from US to another part in US for like $4. So he's saying, what is this? I am at a loss even for delivery. I am at a loss for production, and China is stealing my ideas.
Hmm.
So the minute he would say, this is new, like, I don't know, pencil sharpener or something, the, the market will be flooded with pencil sharpeners. Same, looking same on Alibaba, he's selling for $10. They are selling $10 for 100 sharpeners. What will he say? So this is the kind of thing that you have to be aware of in trade wars or trade FTAs. Ki what
Hmm.
are you opening up to? So if you are saying ki I will send artisans, like there are many people who say ki Indian artisans are very good. Okay, so we will make the murtis and clay pots. And the minute China receives that, China will make a copy and sell it by thousands. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
then what's in it for our artisans? So you are just exploiting our intellectual property. So in many of these equations, India doesn't have the bargaining power to have any advantage. If we were the biggest car maker, or if we were the biggest shipbuilder, or some benefit we could have had, then definitely an agreement makes sense. But if we
Right.
are only going to be buyers from these countries, then I would rather negotiate separately.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. So, I had read somewhere that the dairy industry, steel, agriculture, these industries in India are opposing the RCEP. So, what are the prominent reasons you think about for that?
This is exactly what I was saying. Like, our dairy industry will be competing against the Australia New Zealand dairy industry in RCEP.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, Australia, I mean, there is no competition. We are very big dairy producers, no doubt. But
Hmm.
Australia is as big a dairy producer as us, and it's closer to,
Pacific
the,
countries.
yeah, there is they already are an entrenched player in RCEP. So we are not going to displace them there. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, coming to steel, Tata Steel or SAIL is not going to compete against, the Japanese steel makers or even Korean steel makers. They are way ahead of the game. On the cheap quality steel which Tata Steel and all these our steel guys produce, China's steel industry will outcompete us on price and dumping all the steels whatever is required in RCEP. So our steel is not going to get any advantage. Agriculture, anyways, these countries have their own agricultural requirements. Like Japan buys Japanese rice. They have their own restrictions. And other thing, they are more reliant on meat and meat products, which they produce, and China and ASEAN produces in large quantity. So we are not in any way part of going to be part of that.
India is also one of the largest producers for meat, right?
Yes, but if you see the kind of production versus consumption, we need to be consuming more.
Hmm.
I mean, not just meat, but protein. So, on the side of eggs and all, so it's not like we are going to get any advantage from their side. Their requirements for meat and these processing plants will be very difficult for us to meet. So, that is the problem.
So, do you think the trade infrastructure also matters a lot in this, and it affects these things like the cargo ships and all, which we have, the infrastructure which we have? Do you think it's compatible?
See, infrastructure can be built or they can be expanded. Infrastructure is a bottleneck for India. That is true, but uh, that is not a reason or a disadvantage in a trade negotiation. Because whatever is our delay, let's say you're trading things which are non-perishable, then you will have a lag, but you will get the number of items that you want to send. The lag or the disadvantage comes from our bargaining power in terms of what kind of products that we can manufacture and what kind of products can be sold and what we are going to buy from that region. So if we are going to only buy a lot, we already have a deficit, trade deficit with almost every country in ASEAN. Maybe
Hmm.
Brunei or some country where we will be supplying some weird things. That may be and not buying anything from them. That may be a advantage for us. But other than that, most of these RCEP countries we have a deficit because they supply to us. So
Hmm.
when all the buyers are getting together, it's not good for us. We should be negotiating with them separately. That is helpful for us.
So basically, not joining RCEP doesn't make much difference for to us, right?
Yes, it doesn't make much difference. And like if let's say you go to Fashion Street or some road bazaar,
Hmm.
if all the sellers come together and negotiate with you, it will be a problem for you.
Hmm.
So
No,
you
but
go and
I'll also get the best deal then.
how they will all come together, which means they will mark their price at a certain level.
Okay, okay, okay. It can be both ways, right?
How
If they are coming together and quoting one price together,
that's the
then it's
see that's
problematic. If they are competing within themselves, then I'll get a better deal.
but that's what I'm saying. You have if you have like three players
Hmm,
within
hmm,
them also, then
hmm,
it's fine. Okay,
hmm,
but you are unique buyer. Okay, you
hmm.
you are not buying the same thing that you buy from Japan. You are not buying from Korea. What you're buying
Right,
from
right,
Korea,
right.
you're not buying from Singapore. You're buying different things. So they are not competing with each other.
Hmm, hmm,
Okay,
hmm, hmm,
they are coming together and
hmm.
they are now the single point seller for everything from your mobile phone to your shoes. Everything will be given by them.
Right, right.
Then they will have more leverage on you. So you don't want them to have that leverage. You would rather negotiate with them separately.
Okay, so I think we have talked a lot about RCEP and the free trade agreements and all. Any closing remarks, sir, about India-China relations in context with this free trade agreements and RCEP?
Actually, RCEP is so RCEP. In a way, if you look at it in one way, RCEP creates a market for China for their goods,
Hmm,
and India joining RCEP, it will get another passage for Chinese goods to come to India.
hmm,
Now, in that sense, this RCEP becomes China dominated, and that is one of the reason we don't want to sort of antagonize another free trade agreement because we are in conflict with China. We want to have our freedom to ban Chinese apps and Chinese products and whatever we want to do the economic on the economic front against China.
Hmm.
So in that sense, keeping our independence open for our own benefit is actually a good strategy. In that context, what we can say is that we should focus on the way China interacts with us on one-to-one basis, rather than get entangled in a free trade agreement where we'll be in violation of free trade agreement terms by imposing selective, you know,
Hmm.
bans on some of the selective members of this country in this FTA. So that will create another international dispute for arbitration and all, and another line of headache for us. So it's better to deal with it on one-to-one basis. And anyways, we are not in, we are not as a, we are there as a consumer. So it's first thing we have to do is to build up our competitive advantage in manufacturing so that we have products to sell.
Hmm.
And then we can join RCEP, we can join CPTPP, we can join all sorts of agreement because we have something to sell. We have something to buy,
Exactly.
but we also have something to sell. That's very important. We have to keep asking this question, what's in it for me?
Hmm.
If that answer is more beneficial, then we should join. And if it is not beneficial, we should not join. It's a simple deal.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think that the manufacturing part, which you said, that has been highlighted a lot this year. That India must focus on manufacturing. India must focus on manufacturing and manufacturing. So I guess that picks up because that is one of the reasons of our economy not growing as such, I think,
It is, and there is there's a separate podcast we can do on why India's manufacturing did not pick up
till now.
in till now, and that is one of the very important topics that we can discuss in the later episode.
Yeah, and hope that it grows exponentially very soon. Okay. So on that note, let's close this episode. Thank you for listening this episode, and don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and do follow us here so that you don't miss any new episode. Thank you.
Thank you.